For years, the entire automotive world has been holding its breath for one specific moment: the arrival of the legendary $25,000 Tesla. From the outside looking in, the narrative seems perfectly straightforward. The media is hyping it up as the ultimate democratization of the electric vehicle. It looks like the moment a luxury tech brand finally pivots to build a car for the everyday masses, a cheap, affordable, entry-level EV. But what if that entire narrative is completely wrong? What if the automotive industry is looking at a simple door, completely blind to the absolute giant hiding just behind it? Think about this logically for a second. Why would a company that has spent the last decade relentlessly obsessing over artificial intelligence, human-like robots, and full self-driving architecture suddenly care about scraping the bottom of the barrel for low-margin, budget commuter cars? Will the real billions actually be made by just selling more metal and glass? Or is this cheap car actually a brilliant, silent machine designed to do something far more valuable? What if this affordable EV is actually a Trojan Horse, a vehicle designed not just to get you to work, but to silently collect millions of terabytes of real-world driving data every single day, feeding an ever-hungry artificial intelligence system? The math is simple. The cheaper the car, the more people buy it. The more vehicles on the road, the more cameras are capturing every intersection, every pedestrian, and every complex weather condition. In today's ruthless tech landscape, data is the new oil, and whoever controls the largest flow of data ultimately controls the future of transportation. Is this entry-level car just a ploy that legacy automakers won't even realize is destroying them until it is far too late? There is a fundamental shift happening right now, something massive that even the most aggressive Chinese EV manufacturers might be fundamentally misunderstanding. The direction of the entire electric vehicle market is about to aggressively pivot. And if you want to understand just how deep and how terrifyingly long-term this master plan really is, you need to pay close attention to what is happening beneath the surface, because the reality of what lies ahead is much, much bigger than just a cheap electric hatchback. To understand this master plan, we first have to look at the brutal reality of the global market today. The electric vehicle space has exploded over the last few years. We aren't talking about a niche market anymore. In 2023 alone, around 14 million electric vehicles were sold globally, and that number is just the floor. Demand is compounding. For several years, the king of this rapidly expanding empire has been undeniable. With roughly 1.8 million vehicles delivered in 2023, the crown sat firmly in Austin, Texas. But as we moved through 2024, the growth curve started to flatten. The massive, unchecked acceleration began to slow just a bit. Which brings us to a massive question. Is the pioneer of the electric revolution still safely the world's undisputed largest electric car company? A few years ago, you would be laughed out of the room for even questioning it. The answer was a definitive yes. But today, the battlefield is stained with the blood of an unprecedented price war, and the competition has become absolutely ferocious. Enter China, and more specifically, enter BYD. This is not just a rival. This is an existential threat to the old way of doing business. BYD has stepped up to offer direct, uncompromising competition. In 2023, they shattered expectations by selling over 3 million new energy vehicles. Now sure, that number includes plug-in hybrids, but when you strip those away and look purely at battery electric vehicles, the BEVs, the gap between the reigning champion and BYD became razor thin. In fact, during crucial stretches of 2024, BYD actually dethroned the king in pure electric vehicle sales. How did this happen? Well, to understand the threat, you have to understand the strengths of the players. The pioneer built its empire on 3 pillars. First, an astronomical brand value driven by a CEO whose mere tweets act as a billion-dollar marketing machine. Second, an unapproachable. When people look at the prospect of a $25,000 electric vehicle, they immediately jump to a very traditional, very linear conclusion. They assume this company just wants to sell more units by aggressively lowering prices to choke out the competition. It's a classic volume play, right? Sell it cheap, stack it deep. But if you look back at the historical footprint of this company, you quickly realize they never ever play small. Everything they do is part of a sequence, a highly calculated, multi-stage master plan. They didn't start by building a cheap car. They started by building a wildly expensive, low-volume electric sports car. Then they used that money to build a premium luxury sedan. They perfected the technology, solidified the brand as a status symbol, and only then did they scale down to the mass-market midsize vehicles. Cars have always just been the entry point. The physical hardware is merely the bait. Because the real game, the trillion-dollar game, doesn't begin when the car is sold. It begins the exact moment the customer drives it off the lot. When you buy a traditional car from a legacy automaker, the transaction is essentially over. You hand over the money, they hand over the keys, and that company simply hopes you might come back to their dealership in 6 months for a highly overpriced oil change or brake service. That is the old way of thinking. Build the machine, sell the machine, and move on to the next customer. But when you buy into this new $25,000 EV, you aren't just buying a mode of transportation. You are being onboarded into an inescapable, highly addictive digital ecosystem. You are buying a highly advanced piece of consumer electronics that just happens to have 4 wheels and a steering wheel. Think about the smartphone in your pocket. You buy the phone once, but you spend the next 5 years buying apps, paying for cloud storage, and subscribing to services. That is exactly what is happening here. Over-the-air updates magically appear overnight. New performance features are artificially locked behind software paywalls. If you want faster acceleration, you don't swap out the motor, you swipe your credit card on an app. If you want the car to navigate highways autonomously, that isn't a mechanical upgrade. That is a massive upfront software fee, or even more brilliantly, a recurring monthly subscription. The physical car is sold exactly once, but the invisible software inside it generates revenue over and over and over again. This is the ultimate razor and blade business model scaled up to a massive industrial level. Now take that software as a service model and inject it into a $25,000 vehicle. If a car at that price point hits the global market, it doesn't just reach thousands of wealthy tech enthusiasts, it reaches millions of everyday average consumers. Imagine what an impossibly huge user base that creates. And in the modern tech era, the larger your user base, the more powerful your data network becomes. The vision of this company has never been strictly limited to just making battery-powered cars. They are relentlessly pursuing dominance in energy storage, massive solar grids, and above all else, artificial intelligence. The leadership has stated time and time again that the company who solves real-world AI is the company that owns the future. So if millions of these radically affordable EVs flood the global roadways, they are not just providing cheap transportation, they are acting as millions of roaming, high-definition data collection nodes. Every time someone drives to the grocery store, the car's cameras and sensors are capturing video, mapping edge cases, and feeding an omnipotent neural network. They are training the AI. Are you starting to see the picture? Is this cheap car really just a dream for the budget-conscious consumer, or is it the foundational layer of a much larger, almost terrifyingly ambitious plan? The car is what you see in the driveway, but the real focus is the invisible web of software, AI, and energy infrastructure connecting them all. Which leads us to the absolute pinnacle of this strategy, the endgame, the holy grail that legacy automakers are desperately praying never actually happens, the robo-taxi. Right now, for 99% of the population, a car is a terrible. But to truly execute this robo-taxi empire, software alone isn't enough. You need the physical hardware to back it up. And if you think this company is just slapping batteries into a metal frame like everyone else, you are completely missing their greatest competitive moat. Competitors are obsessing over the wrong things. The true strength of this pioneer isn't just in the sleek exterior design or the minimalist dashboard, it's hidden deep beneath the floorboards. In a traditional car, the beating heart is a highly complex, explosive combustion engine. In an electric vehicle, that heart is replaced by a massive, highly intelligent chemical reactor. We're talking about thousands of individual lithium-ion cells tightly packed into a heavy, rigid slab that completely lines the floor of the car. This doesn't just store electricity, it structurally reinforces the entire vehicle, dropping the center of gravity and drastically improving safety and handling. And the evolution of these cells is nothing short of relentless. In the early days, they relied on standard, off-the-shelf cylindrical batteries, the exact same technology powering your laptop or cordless drill. But slowly, they began to innovate, introducing the revolutionary 4680 battery cell. These massive beer can-sized cells are an absolute game changer. They pack significantly more power into a much smaller footprint, which means you need fewer cells overall. Fewer cells means less weight, less manufacturing complexity, and drastically lower costs, all while artificially inflating the range of the vehicle. But they don't just rely on one type of chemistry. For the standard entry-level models, like the much-anticipated $25,000 car, they deploy lithium iron phosphate, or LFP batteries. Now, LFP cells might be a little heavier and they don't hold quite as much raw energy, but they are practically indestructible. They have a massive lifespan, can be charged to 100% every single day without degrading, and are incredibly cheap to produce. For the high-performance, long-range highway cruisers, they switch to energy-dense nickel-based chemistries. However, raw battery power is useless without a brain to control it, which brings us to the battery management system. This invisible software constantly monitors the temperature, voltage, and health of every single cell in real time. If the battery gets too hot while charging, an advanced liquid cooling system instantly drops the temperature. It is this obsessive thermal management that allows their cars to plug into their massive proprietary supercharger network and pull in hundreds of miles of range in just 15 to 20 minutes, practically eliminating range anxiety. Yet, even with industry-leading batteries and software, the true weapon, the ultimate trick up their sleeve, is the factory itself. Legacy automakers view a factory simply as a place where parts are assembled. This company views the factory as a highly advanced product in and of itself. We're talking about gigafactories, facilities so impossibly large they have to be measured in millions of square feet. The logic here is brutal but simple: the scale game. If you build 100 cars, your cost per unit is astronomical. If you build 1 million identical cars under one roof using the exact same hyper-automated system, your cost per unit plummets to the floor. To achieve this, they completely rewrote the rulebook on how a car is physically built. Enter the era of Giga-casting. Instead of taking hundreds of small pieces of stamped steel, employing an army of robots to weld them all together and hoping the panel gaps line up, they brought in the largest high-pressure casting machines on the planet. They literally inject molten aluminum into a massive mold and instantly press out the entire front or rear underbody of the car in a single solitary piece. Think about the sheer violence of that efficiency. Hundreds of parts completely eliminated, hundreds of welding robots rendered useless, labor costs slashed, assembly time cut into a fraction. That is vertical integration on a scale the automotive